about the topic at hand, which is a training video. So I want people to comment in here and let people know that we're talking about this topic and the video that we're seeing. Here he is, the man himself.
What's up, buddy? How you doing?
How are you?
Hi, internet.
Interweb world. Here we are. The man himself, Rob Pincus. Thank you for joining us.
It's a nice chair.
Yeah, it is a nice chair, right? I picked it up myself. Yeah.
It's very conveniently located in the middle of the
Times Square.
most oppressive city.
Right? Times Square, New York City. Yeah. We could be in Chicago. We could be in Chicago.
The food wouldn't be as good.
No.
So
No.
we got that going for us.
Yeah. So I just got into talking about the video. And I got into talking about what we saw. And what I really want to talk about more so than the video is the action that was taken and the feelings by some people. So the video is posted on our site, and this is something, if you have people in law enforcement, you have people in police and to firearms training, you definitely want to let them know about what's going on right now in this conversation. So send the message out. This is going to be a really interesting conversation,
and we're send the message out right now.
And we're doing going to do a live giveaway. So in the video, we saw there were students walking in a circle or in a square, and part of the drill was they were firing shots downrange past each other. So there was actually students that were slightly downrange from other students, and certain students were shooting right past one or two students. It was very troubling. It was something that we saw, and one of the students in the course posted the video, and we reposted it. Some of us, Rob, myself, Derek, Savage Cerakote, and the thing I posted was, I said, hey, listen, we understand everyone has their own definition of training. We get that. However, and safety.
Their own parameters.
Right. So, but where do you draw the line between what's worth it, what's relevant for training, especially in a civilian class? After posting the video, there were some comments, and unfortunately, Rob was someone who actually spoke very, very outwardly about the dangers of this drill and the dangers of training like this, and how it's not relevant, it's not safe. So, and there was a lot of kickback on Rob for making those statements and for even making a point of the video itself. I had some people message me, email, DM saying, hey man, you shouldn't be doing this stuff. These are SF guys who run this course out in PA, and they've since issued a statement, Rockwell Tactical Group, about that. You should stay away from this stuff. It's maybe some drama, and I understand. I want to let you know I understand the thinking of seeing something troubling, and you don't want to get involved in the drama. You don't want to call them out because you're worried about your image, your identity, whatever. And I got some of that. And when I put the message out on the post, I was very light about it. I said, listen, I get everyone has their own idea of training. I just want to get everyone's thoughts here on this as far as what do you think? And of course, the overwhelming majority was, this is just outright dangerous. No. There's no reason in the world civilians in a course, a weekend course or whatever it was, that have maybe taken, they claimed a 300 level class. So maybe these civilians have taken 2 or 3 classes with this training group, and this is maybe their 3rd or 4th class. Now they're, I guess, sufficient or proficient enough to be on a range with other students downrange, shooting one-handed past these students at a target downrange. There was debris on the ground. There was a lot of margin for error, and it was just outright dangerous. The real danger that came of this, with all of the backlash and a lot of the comments, the real danger came from the people who felt that this should not have been called out. This is a training organization in Pennsylvania that is, I believe, run by some former SF guys. That's what we were told. And there was almost a mindset that don't call this out. Don't call them out for this. It might cause drama. It might whatever. But the reality is, and people like Rob will tell you, when you're in this industry, you almost have an obligation. When you see something that dangerous, there's almost a level of obligation. And I'm going to let Rob jump in on this to get his viewpoint, because he actually expressed it very well in a comment that was posted. And I'll let you get into it. But is there a duty? A lot of you are LE followers, military. Is there a duty for us to, when we see something that's being done that's not safe, that's dangerous, not saying that we're seeing a tactic or a method of training that is not in line with what we're thinking. There's some people who say, no temple indexing. Okay, that's a little something different. There's some people who say, don't look down when reholstering. Okay, all right, whatever. But this was something where students were shooting past other students, and obviously the end result, the ultimate result could be that if there was an error by this student, not a professional, not a tier 1 operator, that someone could obviously end up dead. So is there an obligation when you see that to say something, to repost it, to get it out there, let people know, start a conversation? Or is it, hey, listen, these guys were used to be in the military, they're veterans, that's not cool, don't say that shit because, it's not right, it's not proper. What is the obligation? And, this was a learning experience for me because I posted the video. I was a little light. I didn't really lambaste them on the video. I said, hey, let me get your thoughts here on this. My feeling when I posted it was, this is dangerous. This is scary. The guy in the front of that line is lucky to be alive. And there is no training course I've ever been to, and I've trained with some of the best guys out there, where I don't think we do anything remotely close to this. And I know a lot of guys who are SF guys that I've never even heard them talk about doing a drill like this. So my feeling was wrong, no. But I put it out there in a kind of neutral tone. Rob's standpoint was, hey, listen, don't be neutral about this. Wrong is wrong, danger is danger. Call it what it is, and there's no reason to sugarcoat it, and there's no reason to have fear about actually going out there and speaking your mind. So, Rob, let me let you jump in here and get your standpoint and talk about this thing in the industry where there's this fear of calling things out and calling people out because you might get seen as being, are you causing drama? Are you stirring the pot?
That's everything. It's causing drama, stirring the pot, self-promoting, stealing business, all that stuff. At the end of the day, there is an obligation. This is what I do, right? Right. I get paid to educate people. It's my life's work. It's what I do is I put out information to help people prepare for this kind of stuff, with military, law enforcement, armed professionals, or on the civilian side. I don't draw a big distinction in a lot of ways. Like you said a couple times, civilians shouldn't be doing that. I'll be honest with you, we do, and I actually posted because people came at me, all you're doing is complaining about things, just drama. It's like, you know what? Maybe you have a point. Here's what we do to solve this problem. Because some of the issue with this video was people jumping in and saying, well, how else are you going to train real world? How else are you going to train for a crowd?
Sure, right.
We do that. We do it with military guys, with SWAT guys, and we do it with our civilian, we call it 2-person armed defense class. And it's all about, there's now 32 million people who can legally carry a gun. Civilians, forget about off-duty cops, right?
Sure.
32 million people in our country. When I started in this industry, there weren't 2 million people that had legal concealed carry permits, right? Back in 1990, you still couldn't legally carry a concealed gun in Texas or in Alaska. Things have changed dramatically. Now there's 13 states. There's about to be another one where you don't even need a permit. We have to be preparing differently, and law enforcement has to be preparing differently for the legally armed person, the other armed good guy, right? So I get it. Crowds, interacting with people, multiple shooters on one target, or multiple attackers with multiple people responding. All these things are important to train. But the fundamental safety issue of balancing risk and benefit underlies everything else. A lot of the guys on the internet were kind of level 1 tactical mindset guys, well, what rules were broken? And the example I keep using is, if I have a 3.5-year-old daughter, right? You see you guys are on Instagram. She's all over the place. If I give her a box of crayons and a coloring book and I say stay inside the lines, right? And the rules are stay inside the lines. I come back half an hour later and she's eating the crayons. she can't tell me she didn't break the rules, right? And that's what this was. It was, well, we knew our target and what was beyond it. Our fingers were off the trigger until we were ready to shoot. That's not what this is about. This is a conceptual conversation about balancing risk and benefit. What was the benefit? And you and I both know we saw a video, which is not public. It doesn't need to be public. We saw a video that was actually worse from the same class, same drill, that was like maybe their first run through, which was way worse than the one that was put out publicly. And I respect the reasons why that hasn't been released publicly. But it almost made me feel bad a little bit when I realized I was writing commentary based on the one we saw where people were, full extension, flagging one another, tripping on, that you mentioned, tripping over a paint can, and then bending over with the gun down range to try to fit, like all this craziness.
Yeah.
I wrote my commentary based on having seen more than the public has really seen.
Right.
And yet it didn't matter. As you said, 99% of it was still negative. And one of the important things to realize is, and I beat Suresh up pretty bad in the text. He
did beat me up.
Publicly, I did hit him a little bit too, because when you have someone come on and like, I think like the girlfriend of one of the students was like, you don't understand, and you were respectful to her. You were just like, I know, lots of people train differently. You were being nice. And at the end of the day, you've got amazing products here, right? You've built a business providing quality products. I've got your gloves. I mean, you've got a bunch of stuff here that armed professionals need and use and rely on. And you have a business to build selling those things to every guy that's going to benefit from them, regardless of whether he does tempo index or he looks at his gun when he reloads or what. It doesn't matter. You're not here for that, right? So I get that it's not your job, right, your lane, to go out and critique training. Right? But if you're going to say anything, I think you have to be really clear that this was bad. And I knew you felt it was bad. And all I was saying was, I know you got guys whispered in your ear like, stay out of the drama, don't get involved, you don't have a dog.
There's a lot of guys. There's a lot of guys. We got emails.
I don't mind those guys wanting to sit on the sidelines. I do mind them critiquing someone trying to make the world better, right? And just calling it. And so let me say this now, because as of this morning, Jared, who is a former SF guy, as far as I know, right, by all reports, who's a solid guy. People have been pointing me to some really good training that he's put out and good advice that overlaps and parallels some of the things I've said. And he did the right thing this morning. He stood up. He said, you know what? We didn't want to respond right away. We, and I'm assuming this is Jared, but we, Rockwell Tactical Group, see problems with that drill. We see problems with what was going on. Yeah. We have suspended that individual who apparently was like an adjunct or something with Rockwell Tactical. He runs his own company. He also was associated with other training companies before. It was what came out in all this is apparently I had criticized something he had done a couple years ago, and he had reached out to me on the internet. And if I had $1, I think I do have $1 for everybody on the internet that's told me they disagree with me, so it's okay. It's I just didn't remember it, right? So this guy's already got a chip on his shoulder about Rob's mean to me. And it just kind of, that personal stuff is just a distraction, right? What's important here is balancing risk and benefit. What is also important is that and the first thing I did was ask the question, right? I went to their Instagram and said, is this real? Was this a drill you guys ran? And they defended it. Yes. They came out of the gate defending it, saying, yes, it's one of our drills, and this is what we do. And the instructor and one of the students put up a YouTube video talking about why downrange drills are okay. Here's the deal with downrange drills, and I've said this for decades. This goes back to like writing for SWAT magazine in the late 90s, right? Like, if I'm going to shoot past you, right? If you're going to stand here and I'm going to put you next to a target and I'm going to shoot past you, if I really think there's any chance that I'm going to put a bullet into your head, this is too dangerous. I shouldn't be doing it. If I don't really think that there's any chance I'm going to put a bullet into your head, then what's this mindset, acclamation, benefit I'm getting, right? If you don't really feel fear from that gun being pointed at you, then what's the real benefit? Is it worth the bumblebee stinging me or some crazy, who knows what happens, the hesitation on that trigger because some dirt got in on the trigger bar and then I yanked the gun and what's the risk? How do we justify that risk if there really isn't the psychological component? People are like, well, that's real world. No human being in the history of gunfights has awkwardly sidestepped while shooting really slowly at a target 15 feet away, while their buddy also awkwardly sidestepped while shooting really slowly at the target 15 feet away or 10 feet away, whatever it was. And that's the problem, is people say, well, that's real world. No, it's not. So like I was saying earlier, we posted some videos of what is real world, right?
Yeah.
I've run training for I've had full ODAs. You never actually get all 12 guys to show up to training, but I've had, 9, 10, 11 of the guys show up to a training class that I've run for use of SOC, where we'll put those guys all in a figure 8. They're all mingling and moving around one another, and people have seen our figure 8 drills with multiple targets labeled different ways, and we'll give a command. Those guys don't just start shooting and walking past each other. They find a lane and they engage the target with a string of fire, and or they realize, you know what, I don't have a lane, and they turn around and they take up a position to watch or look for other threats in another direction. That's what professionals do in mixed settings on multiple targets training for multiple shooters. You don't just sidestep like 1985 gun sight training or something.
Yeah.
So what's the real benefit? What's the real problem you're trying to solve? Is there a way to solve it that doesn't rise to a level of negligence in terms of the risk you're presenting to the students? Those are the questions that every instructor needs to be asking, and every student, because I know you're an avid student. I mean, you spend a lot of time training with a lot of guys. Yeah, I may do one of my classes. Yeah, maybe this weekend. But you take training very seriously. So as a student, it's fair to ask those questions. But you knew the answer.
I knew the answer. Yeah,
and I think almost everybody knew the answer. And good on Rockwell for stepping up.
Yeah, Rockwell did step up, and we will be sharing that. That'll be in our story, their statement that they made. I think, Jared, you said, and they made a statement essentially saying, what Rob said, and we will share that. And by the way, make sure you're sending the text messages out that we are going to be doing a little bit of a giveaway. Leave the live, send a text message out, leave the live, send the live invite to join the live to your friends, because we're going to get some more people in here, and we're going to get the live giveaway going on, and let people know that Rob Pincus is in the house. Here we go, Times Square, New York City. But one of the things that they stated in the statement that Rockwell put out was this was not one of their in-house instructors. It was, like Rob said, maybe like an adjunct instructor that came in and was doing a drill during one of their courses that was really, they had no knowledge of him running this drill with his students in the course. They did accept the fact that this drill was dangerous and maybe exceeded the risk-reward scale, and this instructor is no longer with them. And it was, I don't want to call it a rogue instructor situation, but it was a rogue drill that was not something that they sanctioned. That being said, there is, and I wanted to get your input on this, and a lot of people said this in the comments. They said, had I been in that class and the instructor started telling us to do this drill, I would have left. Now, I've been in courses where there's instructors telling us to do a drill, and they are adamant about, hey, listen, you got to be really safe here, you got to be really careful. If anyone is even remotely close to being in front of you, get that weapon on safe. It's a carbine class. Weapon on safe, finger off the trigger, and you're going to move. You're going to wait till that person's clear, whatever. But there was, maybe some leaping and bounding drills. A great course I was in Miami with Tony, Rockwell Tactical. He had a great LE course. It was a multi-day course that built up to the final day, and there was a lot of leaping and bounding, but they were very clear. Listen, wait till the person's clear, rifle on safe, finger off the trigger. They were very adamant about that, and there was never a situation where any one of the students felt like, okay, I'm going to be in the line of fire. It was never anything like that. But if you're in a course, and let's say you were in this Rockwell Tactical course, and the instructors are saying, hey, okay, you're going to be firing, and you're going to be moving past them, and you're going to be firing, and you're going to be... How do you go about telling that instructor, hey, listen, I know you're a special forces guy, Green Beret, SWAT, Ninja, whatever it is, but I don't feel comfortable doing this. We had a lot of people say, I would have just left. Some of these classes are a lot of money. You pay a lot of money. Sometimes you travel. Guys, I travel across the country to travel. So speaking up, there were some people who were saying, I shouldn't speak up about the video.
Right.
About the video of the dangerous activity. What about speaking up in the class? We saw that there was quite a few people in this course, and it looked like everyone was doing the drill. And I almost find it alarming that all those people in that class at that time, doing that drill, not one person said, hold on, wait a second. This person's going to be moving in past me, and I got to shoot past them, and then there's another guy coming up, and I got to shoot in between them. Like, how did no one say? So what is the mentality? What happened in that course that these people were doing this? And they had to have felt there was a sense of danger.
Sure.
They had to have felt that there was a sense of danger. How do you broach that with an instructor where you don't want to maybe embarrass the person, you don't want to try to make
or
it seem
yourself, right?
Or
you don't want to seem like you're the weakling, you're the scared guy.
Right. And
it's hard. We stress with all of our instructors that go through it. So I do a lot of curriculum development, instructor certification. It's really where I focus most of my stuff now, right? And one of the most important things you have to understand is that the instructor's primary responsibility is for the safety of the students. One of the things that I have a bunch of pet peeves, but one of the things that bothers me on the safety side is when instructor says something like, everybody's a safety officer. No, they're not.
No, they're
your
not.
Kids.
Yeah.
They're your kids. The students, you are responsible for them. Now, here's what I tell students. I say, look, I'm going to use this balance of risk and benefit. Right? I'm going to make sure that there isn't any unreasonable risk taken to get the benefit we're going to get.
Sure.
So, of course, we have to make sure we understand what the problem is. We have to make sure we're trying to solve the same problems, get the same benefit, develop the skill, whatever it is.
Right.
Learn the tactic, learn the technique, get comfortable with something, whatever that problem is. Then we have to try to solve it in a way that makes sense. So I tell them, I'm going to do that based on my experience, right? I've got my 10,000 hours in a long time ago, right? So I've got my level of expertise on running ranges, different skill levels, different problems, and my job out on the range is to evaluate the students, identify their needs, and sure, the basic one-day pistol course I've run, 500 times is going to be pretty much the same. It's going to be 90% the same, but the range, the weather, the students, the gear, a lot of things can affect and tweak little safety issues. Whether we run a drill that involves running or we do a drill that just involves a brisk walk, like whether we do a drill with 3 guys out there at one time or whether I do a drill with 6 guys out there at one time. These are the nuances that I, as the instructor running the range, are responsible for. But I tell students that I am responsible for the safety. And we say things like they had a waiver. You could die today. I get it. Like, I want my students to acknowledge the risk. We show them. People, Rob Pincus doesn't carry a gun. No, I'm going to go have a drink. We're going to go have a drink. I'm not carrying a gun, but I'm carrying a tourniquet. I'm carrying a medical kit, right? I show the students the medical kit. I say, here's the tourniquet. Hopefully, like, if they hadn't thought about it before they see the medical kit, they're going to say, wow, I hadn't really thought about that. I could get shot today. I tell you have a bigger, I don't care where you are. We do a class 20 minutes from Chicago. You have a bigger chance of getting shot out here on the range today than you do doing anything else you were going to do, right? So you have to acknowledge the risk, and the student has to then be empowered to speak up. Because what I tell them is, my thousands of classes and years of experience and all this stuff, you may know something I don't. You may have seen that paint can on the range and seen that I was paying attention to all this moving parts. You saw the paint can, you can say stop. I have students they'll say something about the backstop, right? We're going to do this drill and there's tall grass on a side berm and a student will raise their hand and go, I think there's a piece of steel over there. Oh man, I'm glad you pointed that out because I didn't see the piece of steel in the tall grass that was thrown over there from not the normal downrange angle. And we could have had a round skip back and hit a car or hit a person off of that angle. So I'm glad you said something. So if the instructor shows up like, I'm in charge here today and you're all going to be fine, you're always going to get hurt because you're all going to do what I say, right? And I've been doing this for a long time and when you're in the shit like me, you got to take some risks sometimes. Don't worry about it. I got you.
Right.
And then all of a sudden the setup isn't there for the student to ever feel empowered or like they have a responsibility to speak up.
Right.
So now you've got this peer pressure, you got this kind of ego-based stuff going on. You saw it in the guys defending the drill, like, that's real world, I'm sorry you're afraid of training. Just so much ego investment in, I didn't want to be the guy who was scared, right? Everybody else is doing it. And again, this whole thing with this one instructor, unfortunately, there were people defending this. I mean, the people that I saw the text message from one of the guys sent to a mutual friend, like, they're SF, so they know what they're doing, right?
Right.
Somehow those students had the impression that they were being trained by a special forces guy. Well, obviously they weren't. The company's run by a guy with that background, but that instructor was not. But he obviously was sort of on those coattails and selling himself and selling the experience as some kind of vetted master combat kind of course to just like guys. And those just guys want that. I get it. Like, there's people out there that want that type of training. One of the students that actually taken a course with me, apparently in the past, like, this course is way better than the course I took with you, Rob.
I saw that.
Yeah,
I saw that comment,
if that's what you're looking for, yeah, like, please don't endorse my training if that's the kind of thing you think is what you need. We can disagree on that. Not everybody's going to be my student, but everybody who's going to be my student needs to have the balls to speak up if they think I'm doing something unsafe, or to simply ask a question to challenge a technique I'm teaching. We really stress that in our classes and with our instructors, is you've got to speak up as a student. And I think a lot of courses simply aren't set up that way.
Yeah.
So it's easy to sit on the internet and say, well, I would have done this. I get it. Like, I wouldn't have let that happen. I would have done this. I wouldn't have done that drill. But you're also not the guy who sort of got duped into that class in the first place, right? You're the guy on the internet watching the 221B channel thinking, okay, this guy puts out solid information, and you think critically. So you wouldn't have done it. I get it. But you got to put yourself in the position of that group, and that group that was being marketed to with this idea that they were being trained by the elite operators and all that. It's a different mindset.
And they weren't. And, that was one of the most alarming things. Seeing people defend what was going on in that video. One guy claimed that he was in the class. There was one female who was stating that, hey, this is the reason for the drill. Listen, I've been in courses. Many people know some of the people I've trained with. I've trained a lot with Dynamis Alliance, great group of guys there, with Dom, Tony, Real World Tactical, he has a great team. I've trained with Courses of Action, Johnny Primo, another great guy.
He and I had a great side conversation.
I saw that.
He reached out and he was like a text. And I'm like, he's like, dude, really? Like, I don't know, man. You tell me. He's one of your guys, because that's when we still were under the impression.
There was a Green Beret or SF guy.
Yeah, there were several guys that reached out to me like, dude, you know better. And I'm like, I know better, but the internet apparently believes this is what you guys do. So why don't you jump in, and why don't you speak up? Right? Again, all these guys speak up.
Yeah.
I get the brotherhood thing. I got it, but come on.
And we had a couple of people. I saw a couple of comments on our page where there was a couple of SF guys. They're claiming they're SF guys. Obviously we don't know, and they're saying, hey, listen, I've been in SF. I've been in law enforcement. I've never done a drill like that ever in my life.
Nor would I.
Right. So these are guys who were, they were over in the dirt. And over here, training to go over there, they never did a drill like that. So that was something that was obviously a concern. So when we saw civilians defending this drill, and a lot of people said in the comments, and I'll bring this point up, a lot of people said, hey, listen, I can understand if you were a special forces guy, you're a military guy, you're preparing to go overseas, and you want to do a higher level drill to prepare for something like this. I could almost understand that. But for a civilian here, I don't know. The reality is, and I've yet to have seen anything, I've yet to see even the guys who did that stuff say that this is a drill that they would do, that they would endorse, that they would run if they were training.
And the professionalism that came out from Jared, the guy who actually owns the company, reveals that as well. Right? So here's the guy that actually has, the accoutrement, has the resume, and has the experience saying, no, this wasn't right.
Too dangerous,
and bad. Sorry, are bad. So good. But unfortunately, there's still some guy sitting out there, some dentist, there's some delivery guy, there's some hardworking blue-collar guy that likes his guns that wants to take a class that isn't going to hear this message loudly enough, and he's going to buy in on some guy's resume or claimed resume, right, and then end up doing this kind of a drill. And people say, well, this is, you're making them famous. Well, obviously what we did was made them reconsider and think about what they were doing, but also I see less of this, believe it or not, in the industry, and on a percentage basis. The industry's grown. There's so many more classes than there were 10, 15, 20 years ago. But I see less of this on a percentage basis now because of the internet, because things get called out, because the videos go viral. And even if it is just people making fun of it, enough people do get the message and say, okay, I guess that's not what we do then. As opposed to, some guy running a class in the backwoods of Alabama that nobody ever knows better because he's not being written about in SWAT magazine, because he's not on the Police One website, because he's not getting reviewed on, Recoil Magazine's website. Right. Nowadays, people get they get put on blast. Essentially, is what it is. Right?
Yeah, and
so that's good.
There is a little bit of fear in what they're doing because they realize that if they're doing something that is going to go against the norm, go against the grain, there's a very good chance that it could end up on the internet. So they're going to think twice before they maybe say that thing, run that drill, whatever it may be. And they might anyway, and that's okay.
I've got some memes that have been made.
Yeah, I mean, you might anyway.
We do things anyway, and then it gets put out of context or it gets made fun of.
People will twist stuff and whatever, and that's okay. I just experienced that myself. Someone recorded a speech I gave at an event I was at a few weeks ago, and of course, it's spun into something completely other than what the speech was. I always say, listen, watch the speech,
right,
and take it for what yourself. If like someone who doesn't, someone sitting in their mom's basement and is sending a video or making a meme about something, I actually always go to the video, or I'll go to
to get to the story. What was the context of that? Because that looks ridiculous.
Right. So what?
But it may actually not have been ridiculous. The
right.
hay bale thing was kind of ridiculous, but that was a long time ago. I was young. I needed the money.
So we have that in this world, and we know we're going to get called out. We know it's going to get and we don't worry about those people because those are typically small people that have small minds, and we don't mind that. But you're right. The internet is keeping a lot of people honest, and it's going to keep a lot of people safer. And that is the one thing that came out of this, that we had a private text conversation this morning with some other people, and the one thing that came out of this was I was in this mindset, and I was listening because there was numerous people who reached out to me who had said, hey, kind of stay away from this a little bit, be careful. But look at what happened. Look at the result. I posted the video, Rob, Derek posted the video, Savage Cerakote, SC Guns.
It was all over the place. Mr. Guns and Gear had like a billion comments on his. I know a couple of Guns and Gear giveaway. It was all over the place.
Police posts, I think, might have had.
Oh, that's right.
So, but look what came of it. Look what came of it. What came of it was an awareness. It was something that a lot of people saw and said, not that. A lot of people said, no, not me, never. And what ultimately came of it was the owners of the company coming out and saying, hey, this was not a safe thing. The risk reward isn't there. This was a guy who was kind of out on his own doing this. And now they've addressed it by, I believe he's no longer with that organization. So Rockwell Tactical did the right thing. They put out a great statement. I think it's on their Facebook page. Rob shared it with a private group of us this morning.
Well, it's even on, I put it as a comment on one of your places, I think. So it's all kind of all over there. And really a lot of this comes from you guys, like the viewers and the people, all those comments. It wasn't 5 guys that posted, I don't care who we are. It was the 500,000 views and the 5,000 comments, 4,992 of which were negative, that really pushed these guys to really think about what they're doing. Because at first it was, oh no, we stand behind our awesomeness.
Yep.
And then it was like, well, maybe not, because we looked at it a little closer and probably considered some of this. So my guess is the same guys that were hitting you up back channel, people give up on me, they know better than to tell me to keep my mouth shut, but people that are hitting you up back channel, I'll bet some of those same guys probably reached out to this guy, right? And this guy had people like, yeah, all right, Rob may be a dick, but he's got a point. Yeah,
this is dangerous.
Yeah, so
dangerous.
However it happens because of pressure created by the community. And if we don't, let me get political for a second, because if we don't police our own, there are plenty of people out there, and there's some major offices within 2 miles of where we're sitting that would love to legislate gun responsibility upon us, that would love to take that video and say, this is what gun people do. Gun people are crazy. Even like other gun people are saying they're crazy.
Yeah.
The government, some policy group needs to come in and mandate training standards. We need to control this. That's dangerous. So when you see some of this stuff on the internet and you think, oh, let people train however they want. Who are you to get involved? I'm the guy that wants to protect the Second Amendment. I'm the guy that wants to protect our community from regulation. Because I've been in the articles, in the Washington Post, in USA Today, in the New York Times, on the news stories, cited as one of the unregulated trainers teaching military tactic to civilians, because the government is not regulating this industry.
Yeah.
Right. I get where this goes. I'm wearing this pin that says "Fight in the Open." Suicide prevention, mental health awareness, Mental Health America. One of our collaborators at Walk the Talk America. But "Fight in the Open" is really what you're talking about in general. It's not back channel stuff. We don't have to whisper like, "Yeah, that was really pretty bad," but I'm not going to say anything publicly. It needs to be talked about publicly. If you have an opinion, express it.
Yeah, it's something, and ultimately can help in this situation keep someone safer and shed some light on something that was a dangerous situation that thankfully, hopefully, will not be repeated. Hopefully this instructor was spoken to about this, and maybe now he's going to think twice about maybe running a drill like this with civilian students in a course that maybe this is only their third or fourth course. So it's something that led to safety.
You 6 people out there, by the way, who are like, they can't tell me what to do. I'm going to run that drill this weekend. Just don't video it, all right?
Just make sure there's no phones.
Yeah, also, like, really, if you're gonna be that guy that's like, watch this, we're brave enough to do it. Don't. But again, don't double down on the dumb by making it look like this is okay and try to encourage other people to do it.
Yeah, and for the people who were out there that were saying, hey, listen, this is real world training. This is real world training, and this is the only way to get this training is to do drills like this. To me, 13 years in law enforcement, training with SWAT, Tier 1 operators, training to their second level, third level courses, if these guys are training people like me and regular civilians, and they're not having you shoot past live human beings, ask yourself, why not? Why is that not the standard across the board? There's a reason why that is maybe rogue done by less than 0.1% of people. And if you want to simulate a crowd, I've been in courses where they want to simulate a crowd and they want to simulate bad guy, good guy. I'm sure you've seen this. You're walking through cardboard and paper, and the photo on the cardboard or paper is either a child or a guy with a cell phone or a woman with a hairbrush or whatever, and then every few people there's a guy with a gun, and you shoot that person. Now, I've been in these courses where you're weaving through the crowd and you walk past the kid with the candy bar and there's a couple of rounds in the kid. Right? And you're like, okay, someone made a mistake. They add there's a lot going on. You're going through the crowd and you shot that paper kid with the candy bar and you're like, oh man, you pulled around and you didn't mean to. But at least it was paper. At least it wasn't another human being, and that person's going to live to see another day, and you're going to live your rest of your life that you didn't shoot a fellow classmate by accident because you were training and you were learning. That's the whole point of it. That's the risk reward. So when you're in a course, you need to think about that. Now, and I tell people this all the time, it doesn't have to be a drill where you're shooting rounds past another student. If you're in a course, and Rob, I think you'll agree, if you're in a course and for some reason you feel uncomfortable with the drill, maybe you don't feel comfortable doing the drill, or you don't feel comfortable being a participant in the drill, like I would have felt
or like a witness to.
Right. You don't want to be like a witness to a homicide. Like, you got to speak up. You got to speak up. You have to say something. You could literally, and I'm not saying this lightly, you could literally save someone else's life. You could literally save your life. There's no ego here. I know sometimes it's hard when you're a civilian and you have a guy who's maybe a Navy SEAL who's teaching the class and you're like, oh my God, this guy's a SEAL. If you don't feel comfortable, you stand on the sideline, and that's okay. There's no ego there, because guess what? You're going to go home at the end of the day. I'm not saying you need to sit there and call the instructor out, embarrass anyone, but you can just say, hey, listen, I'm going to set this one out.
If the instructor is worth listening to, he's already set that up. If the instructor is a professional that's worthy of educating you, he has already empowered you to ask that question, to challenge that point, to sit that out, to whatever it is. And I think that's the key, is that if you find yourself ever in a situation where that should be your warning sign, right? Like, if it doesn't feel like you can't raise your hand and say, I don't really understand why we're doing this. I don't see that the expected benefit outweighs the known or perceived risk. That's the phrase we use, right? Like,
right.
If you don't expect that there is a benefit that justifies any obvious risk, hearing damage, right? Like people take your hearing protection off sometimes and shoot so you acclimate to the sound of gun. Shut the fuck out of here. So, can I say that on here?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know. Kids are in school. Kids are in school.
Kids are in school. So your instructor has to set that up in the first place to empower you to be able to say, help me understand this, or I'm not going to be part of this, or whatever. If it really gets to the point where you're walking out, take some people with you, right? And then take the video and say, look, this was so dangerous that I was willing to leave my money behind, risk the ego, risk some guys talking bad about it. If you're at that level, let's have a community conversation about it.
Yeah, it's really, really important. So I think that what came of this situation was a positive. The statement that Rockwell Tactical Group put out was a great statement, a positive, and I think all in, and I honestly think after this, even some of the people who were kind of trying to defend this drill are probably thinking twice now and saying, okay, all right, maybe now that Rockwell themselves came out to say, all right, maybe this is something that wouldn't have been worth it, and maybe I don't need to be that much of a ninja where like I'm taking
let's not aggrandize it. There was no value to the drill. People were like, well, they could do it with Sims, but why would you do it with Sims?
Why even do it with Sims?
You're not going to be awkwardly sidestepping, firing one shot every 5 seconds at a target while your buddy does the same thing in the Applebee's. Like, that's not a solution to the problem of multiple shooters, multiple threats in a public space. There are ways to solve that problem. That's why I put that video out the next day. Here's the video of how you train these things. And there's plenty of them out there. And it's not just me. Like you said, Tony, Real World, Dom, Primo, everybody's got ways to address the real problem in a practical way, whether it's concealed carry, multiple officer response, SWAT team, military team, executive protection team. We've dealt with these problems, and you find your lane, you move, and then you engage the target when you can safely without endangering your teammates or anybody else. Right. So it doesn't have to be cardboard. It can be Sims. You're like, oh, they're getting acclimated to the stress. What stress? Again, if you really think you're about to kill your classmate, you shouldn't be doing it.
Right.
Otherwise,
exactly.
There's no stress. So that stress isn't real. You put yourself in a really well role player empowered, well scripted force on force simulation with non-lethal training ammunition. That's where you're going to evaluate your decision making, evaluate your ability to apply your skills, not in these range ego disasters.
Yeah. So it's a great learning point and a great lesson for everyone. Let me ask, I know a lot of people who want to know more about not only the more real world training, but what are some of the resources people can go to for, okay, yeah, you know what, I want to know more about if I concealed carry and I am in an Applebee's or I am in a nightclub like what happened in California, or I am in a ER like what happened, I forget where that is, or a guy came into the emergency room of a hospital.
Chicago.
And there's some people around. I want to do some training that will teach me how to handle myself in that situation, because we know, okay, you carry concealed, and if something happens, yes, most likely in an event where you're going to say, oh, I need to draw my weapon right now, yes, there are going to be people around. There will be the bad guy, but yes, there will be some good people around that you don't want to shoot or kill. Who are some trainers or some resources that people who say, listen, I don't want to just stand and shoot the cardboard cue. Right. I want to learn about those situations. Who are some, yourself or some outlets, some books, some videos? What are?
Well, I think that's the thing, is you have to understand the underlying concepts, right? Because at the end of the day, the shooting the bad guy is just shooting the cue target, right?
Right.
But if I got a guy who's trying to kill me, like 20 feet away, that's where my focus is. I'm not paying attention to you. I'm not paying attention to this person, right? I'm looking for either I'm trying to get away, or if I got family members, whatever. If I'm deciding I need to shoot, that's where my focus is. If there's somebody between me and him, okay, I need to maneuver into a position where I can shoot. It doesn't matter what's happening 20 degrees outside of my peripheral vision over here, because it's relevant. It doesn't matter what's going on over here. So all this illusion that you need, all this chaos around you, in the scenario, in the simulation, does it make sense? Absolutely. There was a drill done by a guy, really squared away guy, great guy, doesn't matter who it is. But this one drill that kind of like just never made any sense to me, but it was kind of infamous in the community 10, 15 years ago. you'd go into a room in a shoot house and there'd be like 30 targets posted up all over all the walls, right? It was like, the guy with the candy bar and a guy with a banana and a guy with a badge, but there was one of those targets that was a threat with a gun. So you had to find a stress, and you're sweating, you're wearing all your SWAT gear, you're in the shoot house, and you probably went by him 5 times with your scan and assess, and finally you see it and you're like, oh, and then you shoot it. And it's like, wait a minute, where's the you're going into where there's 40 people standing perfectly still, all with their hand like this, all with a different item, except for the one guy who's there like super quiet, like E.T. in the stuffed animals in the closet.
Right.
He's like, all right, all of you stand really still if any cops come in. Like, that's not how it works. Like, everyone is either going to be looking at that guy or running from
on the
that
ground,
guy, and that guy is going to be actively killing people. You're not going to have a hard time figuring out who the shoot no shoot is in that moment. The trick is, you said, you feel like you need to draw your gun. What the fundamental pieces we put out is, the gun shouldn't come out of your holster until you're going to shoot. You're at the mall, and shooting starts, and you pull your gun out, guess what you look like really fast to all the good guys and the
bad guys,
right? So the gun stays in your holster, your hand goes to the gun, and you go get your family member, or you start moving towards the exit, you get out your flashlight, you do all that stuff. When the bad guy's right there, that's when that gun should come out, you should use it. Guys say, well, why would I give up half a second? Why would I not? If you're not capable of your hand on the gun coming around the corner, if you're not confident that you can get that gun out of the holster and present that shot in that scenario when you're already on edge, hunting, looking for the bad guy, I really don't want you running around with a gun in your hand in that crowd.
Right.
Does that make sense? People are like, at home defense, right? You're going to check on your kids. Don't go with the gun in your hand. Go with the gun in a paddle holster, or put your battle belt on, or whatever it is you got. Hand on the gun, flashlight in hand, go towards your kids to make sure they're okay. Why wouldn't I want to have my gun out? Because you're going towards your kids. If you're not capable of pulling that gun out if you need it in close quarters, then you're not capable of pointing the gun at your kids and running towards them. You see what I'm saying? There's a balancing act. So understanding the underlying concepts is so much more important than getting into some dynamic drill on the range. So, Aaron Giannetti put out his book on surviving an active killer event. Great book, great resource. We've got all kinds of stuff at Personal Defense Network for free. You can look at multiple person responses. You can read articles about it. There's a bunch of videos we have about moving through crowds with guns or engaging targets in crowds. We've got a DVD on active shooter response, both from a unarmed standpoint, our school attacker response course for kids and teachers. Then we've got the one we did for active shooter response when you have a gun. Even some of the extreme stuff, you've got a rifle in your truck and you're going to pick your kids up from the movie theater, and your kids are in the movie theater when something crazy happens. Do you grab the rifle? Do you how do you deal with that? So conceptually, all that information's out there. Plus, all the guys you mentioned before, all the guys with these heavy-duty military law enforcement backgrounds who do run training for civilians that get into that more advanced or dynamic or tactical or whatever. But remember, ultimately, you got to remember that shooting of the bad guy is just shooting at the cue target, right? But there's a lot of chaos and decision making that happens up to the moment of the shooting.
Yeah.
So dealing with that chaos and preparing yourself mentally for that chaos is more about understanding the underlying concepts than it is running around on the range with your buddies.
Yeah, and I think you made a great point from the standpoint of a lot of our followers are law enforcement. If you see that you come into the mall or you come into that movie theater and you just see a guy moving with his gun out, moving through the crowd, as a police officer, you're going to say, oh, that must be the active shooter. That you're not going to automatically assess or be able to identify that.
Who's on there?
Primo wants to dance with guns. I'll dance with you, buddy.
We talked about courses of action. Johnny Primo is someone, a former SF guy, has a great training course and, teaches stuff. He does not do drills where you're shooting past other students.
That we know of.
Talking more, some, real
He just
world.
said it. He said, I think he's saying it in the basics are getting applied in a dynamic
that situation. If
but
you don't
it
know
still comes down to shooting that cue target.
If you don't know the basics, you're done. You're out of the game anyway, and it's not gonna be relevant either way. Dom with Dynamis teaches the same thing. Dom has some more advanced courses with home defense and urban defense, where he incorporates some of those other environmental factors that could come into play. That's important. But from a LE standpoint, you got to realize, and you made the great point of keeping that weapon holstered and not just taken out and now walking around like Magnum PI, because if a police officer or security guard comes around the corner, he doesn't know that you're the good guy. And what's he going to do? He's going to engage
I mean, it's happened. We've had cops shoot other cops. We just had this thing that happened with the security guard up in Chicago.
Yes.
In Texas a couple years ago, a responding officer in plain clothes in a school got shot by the school resource officer because he was running down the hall with a gun in his hand. You know, I tell guys, so I'm a reserve deputy in the middle of nowhere out in Colorado, right? Like, if you're vacationing in our town and you hear shooting at the school and ISIS is standing in front of my school with a AK-47 and you pull your gun out and shoot the ISIS, like, good on you, because it's going to take me a while to get there from the other side of the county. But when I show up, if all I'm looking for is kids are being shot and there's a guy with a gun in his hand running around the school because you're looking for more ISIS, if I don't recognize you from the class, you're going to get shot. So don't be the guy running around with a gun in your hand.
Right.
Right?
It's important. So so thank you for sharing some of those outlets. And the DVD you have is phenomenal because it talks about that dynamic. You're in that active shooter situation. You don't have a weapon. How are you moving? How are you acting? What are you doing? You're in that active shooter situation and you have a concealed carry. Okay, now you're doing things a little bit differently. You're acting differently. You're moving differently, getting your family and maybe students or other moviegoers to safety. And how are you moving? So that's actually a great thing for people to actually see, because you never know when it's going to happen to you. So in the end, this was a situation where it ended with a positive. That video, a lot of these viral videos go out, and the only thing that ever comes of it is lots of views and lots of likes and lots of comments. This is something where the video was put out, and there were the views and comments and all that stuff, but now the end result is we have some safety, and we feel that, going forward, maybe there's going to be a increased level of safety, and maybe some instructors saw this and said, okay, maybe I got to look twice at some of the drills I'm running and put this risk reward in. And I think there's a lot of people out there who were looking to take courses.
That's the trick. I don't think there's a lot of instructors that really ever thought that was a good idea or would have been tempted to do it, but I think it's incredibly important that students realize, oh, okay, here's all these professionals with this background and these knowledge guys saying no. I'm gonna log that in, so if I ever see it in the class, I'll know that. Wow,
it's not for me, and I gotta get going, or I gotta say something. So I want to thank everyone for tuning in here. I know that, we had a lot of people. Just because you have a gun does not make you a hero. That is 100% right. Sometimes having a gun can make you a zero. So we know that. So thank you to everyone who logged in here, viewed us. Thank you for inviting your friends and sharing. Joining us live from Times Square in New York City.
Little shout out to Derek.
SC Arms.
Savage.
Cerakote. Scarms. I call it Scarms.
Scarms.
Yeah.
You got that. You got that
Jersey.
account, right?
Oh yeah, I got Scarms.com now.
He stole it. Derek, he'll give it to you. He'll give it to you for a fair price. For a fair price. So thank you. We do want to do a giveaway, so we're going to actually go through the comments and we're going to see who made some relevant, positive comments throughout this and show that they were on the live broadcast throughout the whole broadcast, and we are going to pick one lucky winner, and they are going to win a pair of gloves. Reality is harsh. That's right. NO's Knock Firearms Training.
Ooh, and then we'll pick somebody else, and I'll send them one of those active shooter response.
And we're going to pick someone else, and they're going to get the active response DVD.
Not Primo though, because then
we're not. Primo's not going to.
He's not eligible.
No, he's not going to. He's not ineligible to get the DVD. And so, if you have any questions about any of the trainers or any of the courses or any of the materials we covered today, feel free to send a DM. If you want to get any further information about Rob, if you want to send a DM, we can forward it to Rob. He's at Pincus Rob.
Yep.
And we saw Johnny Primo there. He's at Course of Action. I mentioned Dom Rosso. That's Dynamis Alliance. And, of course, the guy I've trained with the most is Real World Tactical. He's at realworld_tactical, also at Tony.Setmanot, I believe. All these people that I follow, you can go check out their course listings online, see what they have, and see what's right for you. DM any of the questions you might have. We will let all the winners know. Thanks for the hearts. Later on today, we'll notify you via DM or Insta chat, whatever, and we'll let you know who the winners are. Thank you for joining us, and remember, the most important thing when it comes to training, and actually Primo just mentioned it, just because you're carrying a gun does not mean you have to pull it out, and it does not mean you're the guy who knows exactly what to do. having a weapon is a huge responsibility, especially a concealed weapon. You're going to pull that out in a public place. You need sufficient training. You know, and I know there's a lot of people who concealed carry, but they do not get the training that they need. So the lesson of today is seek good training, seek proficient training from high-level instructors that are vetted, that you trust. Maybe you know someone who's been to their course a lot. Everyone.
Hey, do you have any upcoming classes you're going to be attending?
I have a course that I might be attending this weekend.
Really?
Yes.
Tell me more about it.
So I'm going to tell you about it. If you want to mention it real quick.
I finally got him to come to the range with me because I'm teaching in Jersey. So you're going to be out there. Derek's going to be out there. We're going to do a little defensive pistol Friday, Saturday. We might post some video.
Might post some video.
Yeah.
We might post some video.
Cool.
Not if people are moving in front of each other, though. We're not going to post that.
That will be happening at lunch. Speaking of which, I want to get some New York street pizza.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. We're going to send our winners a message shortly. Stay safe, and remember, the most important thing, especially for our LE followers, even for the civilians, watch their hands. Always watch their hands. Hands are what kill.
Wash.
Manicure? You got a manicure?
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon.